I've already made a video about water storage and the importance of keeping water at the house or your apartment, wherever you happen to live, in the event that there's a grid down situation. Your first plan of action should be to refer to your stored water, which should be drinkable, stored in safe containers, and easy to access. Eventually that is going to run out no matter how much water you have stored. So you're going to have to think about getting more somewhere else. So before anything happens, like right now, as soon as you watch this video, you want to be thinking about, in your community, wherever you happen to live, whether it's rural, urban, whatever, where can you get water from? Take note of nearby streams, ponds, lakes, rivers, even fountains, public fountains in front of like buildings, etc. That water should all be potentially drinkable, assuming that you can disinfect it. So anytime that you get water from a natural source, no matter what it looks like, whether it's murky or clear, you can't trust it to be drinkable. There's 4 things that can be in the water that can hurt you. The first thing is viruses. As far as I understand it, in North America, specifically Canada, United States, etc., viruses are not a huge concern in water, and in fact they're not really a huge concern in a lot of places. The only way that there could be viruses in water, due to my from the research I've done, is if you're taking water from a source which is being contaminated by either human or animal feces. So I guess there is a risk for sure, so you should always take it into consideration. But if you're in the wilderness, for example, and you come upon like a lake up at elevation or something like that, and there's no animals around, chances are that water is safe to drink. But you can't always be sure, so hence the need to disinfect water. Some of the other things that you need to be aware of are bacteria, protozoa, and parasites. Boiling is one of the most famous ways to disinfect water all over the world. I've actually got some water boiling behind me here. I'll just move the camera over so you can have a look at it. Okay, so there's a lot of sort of conflicting information about how long to boil water for. You pretty much only need to bring it to a boil and then keep it there for about a minute afterwards. That should kill everything that's in the water, and it should be safe to drink. Something that happens to water when it's boiled is it gets deoxygenated. So you need, if you want it to taste good, it's going to taste flat after you boil it. So you let it cool down, and then you taste it, and it tastes kind of like dead water or something. So apparently what you can do is kind of swish it around from one container to another to get some oxygen back into it, and it will taste better. Obviously that shouldn't be a primary concern, but it's just something to take into account. What I would say about boiling water is, yes, it will kill all the bad stuff. It's not going to take out minerals or chemicals or any of that stuff if there is some. If there's salt in the water, same thing. It's not going to help at all. But it will kill the big 4: the viruses, the bacteria, the protozoa, and the parasites. One thing to take into account with boiling of water is the energy it takes to boil it. If you're doing this over a fire, for example, it takes a huge amount of resources. If you're doing it on like a camping stove, something like that, it's going to use up your fuel. If you've got fuel at home, same thing, it's eventually going to use it up. So boiling is very energy intensive, and it does work, but there are other methods that are much more efficient to disinfect water, and I'm going to talk about those. Chemical disinfection of water. This, I think, is a great method, and truth be told, this is how our tap water gets disinfected as well. Going back into the past, they've used chlorine and they've used iodine before to purify tap water, like huge drinking supplies for the population. So these are very powerful chemicals. They are dangerous, sort of if consumed without proper caution. Bleach, for example, I mean, you don't want to be drinking that obviously just straight out of the bottle or anything like that. Okay, so let's talk about the different methods I have here. Okay, so this is chlorine bleach. It's just like an over-the-counter, very standard kind of thing that a lot of people probably have in their houses. You can disinfect a liter of water with that by using, 2 to 4 drops and you wait for 30 minutes, okay? You don't want the scented kind or anything like that. You just want like the standard chlorine bleach. So you basically take like a sheet of paper and you're going to dunk it in there. You know, you don't want to be contaminating anything, so you want to use something that's sterile. And then you just get the drops of bleach to drop from the dropper into the water. There's 2 drops, 3 drops, 4 drops. Okay, so that's all you need, and you basically just leave it alone for 30 minutes. You know, you come back and then you smell it, and if you can smell that it's got that chlorine smell to it, it's good to go. If you smell it and you know, it doesn't smell like that, add another drop or 2 probably, and then leave it for another, let's say, 30 minutes. Smelling it now, I can't smell chlorine in it, but maybe it just needs time or something like that. So that is chlorine. You leave it for 30 minutes again, and 2 to 4 drops per liter. This is not a liter actually, it's just there for representation. Okay, so now the other method is iodine. So this is, it's called tincture of iodine, 2.5%. I bought this from the pharmacy. Pretty much every pharmacy, I think, in the world, more or less, will have something like this. It can also be used, and I guess more commonly, it's used as a topical disinfectant for wounds. So if you cut yourself or something like that, you drop a few drops of that on there, it will disinfect the wound. So it's a multi-use item, which is great to carry with you in like a survival kit or something like that, because it's going to help you with first aid as well as disinfecting water. Okay, so what you want to do with the iodine is you're going to drop in 5 to 10 drops per liter. So it's more than the chlorine, and it will change the color of the water. So let's give it a try here. Okay, I think that's 1 drop. 9, 10. Okay, and the same thing with the bleach. You want to leave that in there for 30 minutes. And I can see that the water looks a little bit more yellow. I don't know if that's going to show up on camera or not. Probably not. So yeah, that is disinfecting with iodine and bleach. A third option I'm going to throw into the mix, although I only have 2 jars, is these chlorine tablets that I bought from my local outdoor store, Mountain Equipment Co-op. In the United States, you can probably pick these up at REI or other camping stores. And it comes in sort of like a blister pack kind of thingy here. They expire in 2016, so they stay good for a long time. I think these are great. I have used these in the backcountry a few times and I've never gotten sick. You know, these chemical disinfection methods, they will deal with everything, including viruses. What I would say though is that they are going to affect the taste of your water. Some people don't like that. Something you can do to sort of counteract that a little bit is to maybe throw in some, you know, Gatorade or some of this Crystal Light or something like that. So it does help a little bit with the taste of the water, because you don't want to be tasting chlorine or iodine or whatever when you're drinking it. Okay, so something to keep in mind with this is if the water is murky, if there are like sediment in the water, you want to extend the duration of the contact time with the chemicals. So instead of, you know, 30 minutes, maybe leave it for 40, 50, an hour, just longer. Before you put the chemicals in, you want to try to get rid of that sediment somehow. A great way to do that is to pour, like say that this was the bad water and this is like the empty container. You want to put a bandana on top of the container and pour the water through the bandana. And that will sort of filter out more of the large particles. Viruses, bacteria, etc., they can reside within the particles, so it takes longer, or sometimes it's impossible for the chemicals to fully penetrate those particles. So the bigger like chunks of dirt, etc., like particles in the water, you want to try to pre-filter that using some cloth, your shirt, bandana, whatever, just get it out of there. Also the temperature of the water, if it's coming from like a really cold source, you want to also extend the duration, so leave it for longer. What is really good about chemicals though are they are very portable. You know, they're very cheap to use. Some of the stuff, like both of those things, it's likely that you might have that around the house with you. And also, it doesn't require any energy to disinfect. We talked about boiling already, and you need a heat source, you need fuel. You in a grid down situation, that could be difficult to come by, and also there's a danger of burning down your house or perhaps getting carbon monoxide poisoning. So I definitely recommend the chemical method as the way to go for most people. It's not as glamorous as, you know, the heat of boiling or the, you know, complex water filter, but it works. You know, you'll be able to drink it, you'll be safe. Another method of disinfecting water that I'm going to talk about is using a water filter. This is the Katadyn Hiker Pro. This will handle 3 out of the 4 of the major problems when it comes to disinfecting water. It will handle bacteria, protozoa, parasites, but what it will not handle is viruses. And the reason for that is because the filter, you know, it's like a grid basically, I guess, and it will filter out particles to a certain size, but the viruses are smaller than the filter is designed to handle. So viruses, if there are any in the water, they will go through the filter. The other thing I would point out about this, other than the price, is that it has a lot of moving parts in it, and it is prone to failure. You know, the filter can become clogged. You know, something, you know, mechanical within the device itself can get broken. So I would not depend on this as my primary method of disinfection, or if I was, I would definitely have a backup plan. Okay, so I'm going to give it a quick pump here. I've got the bad water over here, and the good water is going to come out there. And you can see it just kind of pours out the tube there. Nice and easy to do, really. I think that it takes about, the manual says it takes about 48 strokes or about a minute to pump a liter through it. But this thing is good for quite a few liters. I think it's good for like thousands of liters. When you're using it, just be careful not to filter out like the crappiest water you can find. If you're on a pond or something like that and there's some debris, try to get this the input filter into the water somewhere, you know, the clearest portion of the water, and that will extend the life and the duration of your filter overall.